Do you see rioting in the streets? Do you see injustice? Are there lessons from Scottish history? Stick with me, and in this video, I hope I'll help you find out. Hiya, I'm Bruce Fummey from Scotland History Tours. If you're interested in the people, events and places in Scottish history and you want some great ideas about places to visit in Scotland, then subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the notification bell. That way you'll be notified every time I make a new YouTube video. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. Okay, so it's the 3rd of June. Now in 1792, this was the day before the birthday of King George III. Now if you're Scottish, then that was the elder brother of the Duke of Cumberland who raped the Highlands after Culloden. If you're American, then he's the guy against whom you've just fought a revolutionary war for independence, liberty and freedom from oppression. If you're English, then he went mad. The Madness of King George, you saw the film? No. If you're French, then you're in the middle of a revolution and in 6 months you will behead your king. But back here in the UK, not only are the ideas of the French Revolution agitating the people, but within the last year, one of the many corn laws have made the food more inaccessible for the common people. But if you're in the British military, then on the eve of George III's birthday, you're probably in barracks drinking to celebrate, just like your predecessors did for his father's birthday the night before Culloden. Outlander. Sorry, just trying to keep the Americans on board. They're on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, and each time a toast is drunk, they fire off their pistols, and this generates a crowd. Now, they don't shoot at the crowd, but they do throw stones at the crowd. The next night, of course, a mob turned up at the house of Robert Dundas. Now, Robert Dundas had been heavily involved in heavy-handed tactics with the military putting down complaints of Highland clearance in Sutherland. He'd become Solicitor General and then now Lord Advocate with the help of his uncle, Henry Dundas. He was a guy who campaigned against the abolition of black enslavement and was the last person in the UK to be impeached for the misappropriation of funds. Are you starting to get the picture? What I'm saying is, when a mob turns up at your house to protest against unjust state violence, it's because you're the pantomime villain. Now, one of Dundas' servants heads out the back and runs to Edinburgh Castle to get military backup. And 40 minutes later, the 53rd Cavalry turn up. It would have been so much better if it was the 7th. Now remember, it's now George III's birthday. They're probably pissed. They read the Riot Act. Now, when I was a bairn, reading the Riot Act was an expression that somebody had torn a strip off somebody else and given them a piece of their mind. If you'd come home late from the pub, your wife would probably read you the Riot Act. But back then, the original sense of the Riot Act was because it was an actual act of law. That when an official read it, then a crowd of more than 12 people had to disperse, and if they didn't, then the troops could use force with impunity. Tear gas, rubber bullets, live rounds, sabres, the lot. It's a bit like the 1807 Insurrection Act in the United States of America. The consequence was that the next day several bodies were found in the meadows in Edinburgh to where the fleeing protesters had run. And of course that night an even bigger mob turned up at the house of the Lord Provost in St Andrew's Square. That was put down with a combination of Marines who'd come up from a ship in Leith and cavalry who'd come down from Edinburgh Castle. Now, there's a really short poem at the end, and it's not mine, and I don't want to crush its meaning. So let me take the opportunity at this point to say, if you've liked this or find it useful, then please give it the thumbs up, give it the like, share it and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and click on the notification bell so that you get notified every time I bring out a new video. Anyway, after what had become known as the Dundas Riots, or the King's Birthday Riots, choose which you prefer, there followed a series of civil meetings in a hall in the Royal Mile on the issue of people's rights. And from that emerged a man by the name of Thomas Muir. Now, the story of Thomas Muir would take way more than one episode, but suffice to say that he was an Edinburgh solicitor who'd originated in Glasgow. Now, you know what these Ouijas are like. Lefty, rabble-rousers, you know the type. Muir was worse than that. He was accused of publishing in Edinburgh Thomas Paine's seminal, seditious book, The Rights of Man. And Robert Dundas, remember him? He's behind you. He made it his goal to make sure that Thomas Muir was done for. And indeed, a year later, Thomas Muir was sentenced to be sent to an Australian penal colony. It seems that standing up for the rights of man can sometimes bring down the weight of the state upon you. Or it could do in the dictatorial times of George III. Let's not forget, this all started with drunk troops shooting off guns to celebrate the birthday of George III. Sometimes the organs of the law and state can behave inappropriately, and in peaceful protest is returned with force. Riots ensue, things get crazy, and dictatorial people in authority can use it to suppress the rights of man. But thankfully, that would never happen today. But if you are going to protest injustice, you better make sure you do it peacefully, because violence is the tool of the tyrant. 30 years ago, I remember hearing a performance poet at a Christian festival. Now, I can't remember the guy's name, but a very short poem of his has always stuck with me. History repeats itself. It has to. No one listens. Ha myn dochus gwn bí lam alai. Cheery and Drasta.